In the bad state, above everything are the rulers. In the reasonable state, the laws. Plato, ancient Greek philosopher. In the most democratic countries in the world, there are most trials being held. What is the principle of the rule of law? How does Kazakhstan improve its position in the ranking of the rule of law? Democracy is impossible without the rule of law. That is, all the activities of the state and its citizens must be based on the norms of law which were adopted by the state mentioned. The state should be governed by law, as was proclaimed by the Romans, the creators of ancient democracy and the legal system in the world. The rule of law is the main and basic principle of the organization of performance of state and society. The rule of law itself is included to the concept of law. That is why the law as a legal phenomenon concentrates in itself this principle of the rule of law, meaning all moral ideas of moral justice, goodness, etc. The rule of law principle is simple. The law has a supreme legal force, and there is nothing more important above it. It governs all members of the society and the authority with no exclusions. But this principle is observed far by not all countries that have proclaimed it. At the same time, social, economic and political situation depend from the legal stability in the country. The law has a number of characteristics. Firstly, it must be accepted by the parliament, and secondly, this must occur in a specific order. The third characteristic of law is that any law accepted should regulate even more important social relations. What do we understand under the concept of more important social relations? These are relations when almost all members of our society are involved. This could be, let's say, the law on education, or the law regulating healthcare system, or the labor code, or civil law, and so forth. The fourth feature is, the law must be abided by all. The constitutional state has always lived on the principle of the rule of law. In the developed countries, there are no problems with the observance of this principle. We know that the US is the most litigating country. What does this mean? There, children are suing their parents when parents violate their rights, and they are very well informed on their rights and obligations. They can sue teachers, and even parishioners can sue priests, because everyone in the country knows his or her rights and never allows their violation. The law is everything for them. In England, the law is also being put above all. In the developed countries, responsibility for the observance of this principle lies not only on the shoulders of the state representatives, but also on the professionals in the legal sphere.
So I think regulation is needed in Kazakhstan in the same way as it's needed in England and Wales and everywhere for the same purposes. I think the independence from government is absolutely vital. It is for us in England and Wales, even though it's a developed, very developed country with a developed democracy, it's still important that the legal profession can challenge the government to uphold the rule of law and make sure that the government and everybody in power sticks to the law, and it's exactly the same in Kazakhstan. So to keep a separation, if you like, between the legal profession and government is why I think that's needed.
The Rule of Law Index is compiled on the basis of expert data and public opinion and is being published every year. 102 countries are being assessed according to 7 parameters: the limit of powers of governmental institutions, the absence of corruption, presence of order and security, the protection of fundamental rights, transparency of governmental institutions, compliance with laws, and both civil and criminal justice. In 2015, the rating was headed by the Nordic countries, the Netherlands, Finland, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. Kazakhstan took the 65th place in 2015, improving its position by 6 points compared to the year 2014. Among the CIS countries, only Belarus could overcome the republic. According to lawyers, countries of the former Soviet Union have not yet become legal states, although their constitutions say they are. Even Russia has written that it is secular, democratic, legal and social state. Kazakhstan, when creating and revising its constitution, has found more accurate form to express this norm. Kazakhstan proclaims itself as a secular, democratic, legal and social state, which means it is being approved on a daily basis, and the country has committed to this image, which is defined in the first article. Ordinary citizens must obey the laws too, but they need help in this. The Americans have seriously thought about the increasing number of crimes in the society when the life in New York City in the early 80s has turned into hell. About 1,500 serious crimes have been committed there daily. The newly elected head of New York's subway, David Gunn, started to solve the problem by means of combating graffiti and litter in the subway. The citizens were dissatisfied and thought that the money from the budget was spent inappropriately. However, thanks to these efforts, the number of crimes in the city fell by half. Thus, this sociological broken windows theory has been confirmed, which states that if one window in the building is broken and left unrepaired, after some time, in this building there will be no unbroken glass. In other words, people often go to the violation of public order with the thought, if others can, why I cannot? Subsequently, this theory has found its application in Europe, South Africa and Indonesia. In these countries, also by establishing public order, the peace of society has been achieved. Now it is hard to become a judge in Kazakhstan. Why lawyers need to be regulated. The Special Commission has found that the main problems hindering the movement forward are the poor coordination between the main processes and departments, the non-effective leadership, anxious with the subordination, unclear strategies and conflicting priorities. When all of these problems have been solved, by the year 2000, the consideration time for civil cases has fallen 5 times. Kazakhstan is also well aware of the importance of changes in the field of rights for the country's investment attractiveness. 19 out of 100 concrete steps orders of the leader of the nation are aimed at ensuring the rule of law. Until recently, the Supreme Court was the most private body. It was impossible to carry out conversations with them at all. They were very closed, and it was even considered that they should not communicate with anybody, etc. Now the Supreme Court is the most active builder of the system of the rule of law. They are very open, they are constantly carrying out some activities, congresses, roundtables, briefings, and so on. Today, in Kazakhstan, the requirements for candidates for judges are tightened. They must have at least 5 years of working experience in the judicial system and should pass difficult tests. Only then they could be admitted to a 1-year judicial traineeship. Any superior judge must work in the lower courts. The courts shall be open and justice should become more accessible for all citizens. We have a system called Court Cabinet, which makes it possible to submit legal documents in the electronic format. This simplifies the process and strengthens communication. I mean that the Supreme Court does much in order to move forward the legal reform in a successful way. Now we need other governmental structures to do the same. It is clear that without the support of legal society, this will be impossible. All reforms in the law sphere are directed primarily to make foreign investors confident in the quality of Kazakh justice. Another important step for the country is the creation of an international financial center of Astana, acting on the basis of the English law. There will be an international court of arbitration in its structure, not dependent on the judicial system of Kazakhstan. The Astana International Financial Center will begin fully operate in 2018. According to forecasts, the economic impact of its establishment can make up to $40 billion for 10 years. The legal system of Kazakhstan will continue to modernize. The basic legal arrangements governing the relationship between the state, business and citizens will be improved, as well as the efficiency, transparency and the access to legal services in the country. The International Bank for Reconstruction and Development for this purpose has given $36 million to Kazakhstan. All people, including small children, are parties to legal relationships. The world is rapidly changing, as well as the legal relations within it, and this is reflected in the new laws. The government is working towards society and creates the laws that correspond to its interests. The same family code. It is full of new norms on the institutions of family rights. Why? Because circumstances have changed. Let's say extracorporeal fertilization has emerged. This phenomenon also needs its own legal definition and has to provide some guarantees and so on. So this is a big novel which has entered the code on marriage and family. In the early 90s, Kazakhstan has announced itself on the world arena as a democratic state, including through the new laws. The lawyers took the example of the Western states and have chosen the best from the foreign experience. In 1998, Kazakhstan in the development has been ahead of the Ukraine and Belarus 15 times. We had the best legislation on civil law. We had a model of civil procedure code, only the model. It was Kazakhstan who was the first state on the whole space of the CIS, which has closed the first nuclear test site in the world. We were the first to launch such large projects, which have shifted our economy. However, even today, the changes in the legislation are required to make the country even more attractive to investors in order to raise Kazakhstan in the international doing business rating. In 2015, on the consideration of the parliament, there were 210 bills, of which 158 have endorsed. This is 46 bills more than in 2014 and 59 more than in 2013. The lawyers play an important role in the formation of a legal state and civil society, because it is an active part of the society that knows the laws, knows how to use them, protects the rights of the citizens and legal entities. Thus, every lawyer has a big responsibility. In the world, this issue is being regulated by associations of lawyers.
The legal profession needs regulation to protect the public. We serve the public, and we need to ensure that those who have those professional obligations, who are officers of the court, act with integrity. They do uphold the rule of law. So we need to foster good business to enable people to do that. We need to exclude the dishonest, make sure that people who do not attain the high standards can no longer practice. But it's about public protection and therefore the protection of the profession.
One of the main objectives of such organization is to track that all who call themselves lawyers have the appropriate education, qualification and continue to improve. In Kazakhstan, until recently, no one was focused on this issue. In fact, a huge army of private practitioners, they do not have a code of ethics. They can make unethical actions in relation to their clients, due to which the customer will suffer. Such actions are of the lawyers in quotes. So now we believe that we need a code of ethics in order to be sure that a self-regulatory organization has a code of ethics and all of its members adhere to it. The ordinary citizens, faced with a poor service delivery, as well as the legal entities and government agencies. In the world, the membership in such associations is mandatory. It is impossible to work as a lawyer without it. There is such an organization in Kazakhstan, but with a voluntary membership. The main goal of our organization, Kazakh, is the regulation of the legal profession. That is, we want all lawyers, commercial lawyers who provide legal services or legal aid to citizens or legal persons, be the members of an organization in which there is a code of ethics, that is, those persons who are subject to certain rules. If they do not comply with the rules, they are naturally removed from the organization. Kazakh has been existing for 4 years already, and during that time, the organization has achieved a lot. The recognition at the international level, the recognition of the state, as well as the members of Kazakh are the members of the International Council of the Supreme Court. Our representative is a member of Methodical Council on Legislation of the National Chamber of Entrepreneurs. We have very good cooperation with the National Chamber. We're also accredited by the Ministry of National Economy and constantly provide comments to the legislation. But the most important achievement of Kazakh for 4 years of its existence is the recognition in Kazakhstan. The most progressive lawyers themselves come into the organization and are willing to comply with ethical standards themselves.